The winter of 2024 brought not just snow and icy winds, but a sense of foreboding that settled over the nation like a heavy blanket. It wasn't just the cold that crept into every corner of Canada, but a political and economic chill that shook the country to its very core, leaving cities eerily quiet and citizens on edge. The re-election of Donald Trump in the United States sent shockwaves northward, triggering a crisis when he abruptly imposed a punishing 25% tariff on all Canadian imports, blindsiding both governments and businesses. Shockwaves hit every sector, from Ontario's auto plants, where assembly lines ground to a halt and workers faced sudden layoffs, to BC's lumber mills, where exports dried up overnight. This wasn't just a trade spat, but an existential threat to Canada's economic lifeblood, with entire communities bracing for impact. The move felt like economic war from Canada's closest ally, dominating headlines, fueling heated debates, and becoming the main topic at dinner tables nationwide. Families wondered what the future would hold. Centuries of trust seemed to vanish overnight, replaced by anxiety, uncertainty, and a deep sense of vulnerability. The familiar comfort of cross-border friendship was suddenly gone. Prime Minister Trudeau's government, already on shaky ground after months of political turbulence, now faced its biggest foreign policy test yet, with the eyes of the nation and the world watching closely. A weak response risked capitulation and humiliation on the world stage. A strong one, the possibility of all-out conflict with Canada's largest trading partner. The stakes had never been higher. Businesses scrambled to adapt, supply chains frayed, workers feared for their jobs, and political opponents sharpened their attacks, sensing opportunity in the chaos. The winter of 2024 became a perfect storm: political crisis in Ottawa, economic turmoil nationwide, and a growing sense of isolation as the snow kept falling. In the end, Canada was forced to rethink its place in a world where its best friend had suddenly become its biggest risk, and the deep freeze was more than just a season, it was a turning point in the nation's story. President Trump justified the tariffs with claims of national security, accusing Canada of fueling illegal immigration and fentanyl trafficking. But the facts told a different story. U.S. data showed the real fentanyl crisis was at the southern border, not the north. Irregular migration from Canada was negligible. Trump's narrative was political fiction. Canadian officials tried to counter with facts, but emotion and rhetoric drowned them out. Still, Ottawa increased border security spending, hoping to appease Washington and de-escalate tensions. The irony? Canada was forced to solve a problem that didn't exist, just to placate a White House driven by politics, not reality. The asymmetry was clear. Canada was reacting to a crisis manufactured for American political gain. The crisis exploded inside Ottawa, sending shockwaves through the heart of Canada's political establishment. The capital, usually a place of careful calculation and measured words, was suddenly gripped by uncertainty and speculation. It all began when Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland abruptly resigned just days before the highly anticipated federal budget. Her departure was not only unexpected, but it also left a gaping hole at the top of the government, raising urgent questions about the country's direction. Freeland's public rebuke of Prime Minister Trudeau's slow and cautious response to the escalating crisis shattered the carefully crafted image of a united government. The rift between the two leaders, once hidden behind closed doors, was now on full display for the nation to see. As the architect of Canada's most important trade negotiations in recent years, Freeland had built a reputation for toughness and resolve. She called for a much stronger stance against President Trump's aggressive tariffs, arguing that Canada needed to defend its interests with more forceful action. Her dramatic exit sent shockwaves through Parliament, leaving politicians and journalists scrambling to make sense of the sudden upheaval. The opposition, sensing opportunity, quickly seized on the chaos. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre wasted no time, framing Freeland's resignation as undeniable proof of Trudeau's failed leadership and deep divisions within the Liberal Party. He rallied his supporters, promising a new direction for Canada. The Liberals' poll numbers plunged almost overnight, as the crisis shifted from a debate over tariffs to a much broader question of competence and trust in government. Headlines blared with criticism, and party loyalists grew anxious. Inside government offices, staffers scrambled to fill the leadership void. Heated debates erupted over how to handle the U.S. Some argued for renewed dialogue, while others demanded a confrontational approach. The lack of consensus only deepened the sense of crisis. Paralysis set in, leaving Canada looking weak, divided, and disorganized at the worst possible time, just as the world was watching and the stakes had never been higher. Trudeau, under fire, tried diplomacy, flying to Mar-a-Lago to meet Trump in a high-profile but fruitless visit. The optics were brutal. Critics saw a desperate leader begging for relief, with nothing to show for it. Meanwhile, Ontario Premier Doug Ford called for retaliation, threatening to halt Canadian energy exports to the U.S. The country split. Ottawa urged caution, fearing a trade war. Provinces demanded a show of strength. The mixed messages confused allies and adversaries alike. Canada's response was muddled, caught between appeasement and aggression. The lack of unity weakened Canada's negotiating position. The crisis deepened, with no clear path forward. The nation's economic sovereignty hung in the balance. The 25% tariff threatened to unravel the tightly woven economic fabric between Canada and the U.S. For decades, the two countries have shared not just a border, but a deep and complex partnership built on trust, trade, and mutual benefit. The sudden imposition of tariffs sent shockwaves through both nations, raising questions about the future of this vital relationship. Every day, billions of dollars in goods cross the border, seamlessly connecting factories, farms, and businesses on both sides. Industries rely on intricate cross-border supply chains for everything from cars and electronics to food and medical supplies. This constant flow of trade supports millions of jobs and keeps shelves stocked in both countries. The tariffs disrupted these networks overnight, raising costs, delaying shipments, and threatening jobs on both sides of the border. Workers faced uncertainty as companies struggled to adapt, and communities dependent on trade braced for economic fallout. Canada supplies the U.S. with vital resources: oil, electricity, and critical minerals essential for national security. These resources power American homes, fuel industries, and are the backbone of countless products. Tariffs put these supplies at risk, forcing American industries to confront their own vulnerability. Suddenly, the reliability of Canadian resources was no longer guaranteed, and companies scrambled to find alternatives. Ottawa warned tariffs on Canadian goods are a tax on American consumers, fueling inflation and hurting competitiveness. Everyday items became more expensive, and businesses faced higher costs, making it harder to compete globally. The pain was mutual, exposing Canada's dangerous dependence on a single trading partner. Both economies felt the strain, and the risks of over-reliance became painfully clear. What was once a source of prosperity became a strategic weakness, as the very ties that brought growth now threatened stability. The crisis sparked urgent debate about diversification and economic independence. Policymakers, business leaders, and workers all asked, how can Canada protect itself from future shocks? The immediate threat was tariffs, but the real challenge was rethinking Canada's entire economic model, building resilience for a more uncertain world. With Washington deadlocked, Canada launched a Team Canada offensive, bypassing the White House to lobby U.S. state and local leaders directly. Diplomats, ministers, and premiers fanned out across America, armed with data showing how tariffs hurt local jobs and businesses. They met governors, mayors, and business leaders, building a coalition of American allies. The message, this trade war hurts us both. Simultaneously, Canada pledged to boost defense spending, addressing a long-standing U.S. grievance. The two-pronged approach, economic and military, began to shift the narrative. U.S. governors and business groups started pressuring Washington for a resolution. The conversation changed, from protecting America to recognizing the real costs of the trade war. While the crisis wasn't over, Canada's grassroots strategy laid the groundwork for eventual compromise. The winter of 2024 became a national reckoning for Canada, exposing its over-reliance on the U.S. The crisis forced Canadians to ask hard questions about their economic future and national identity. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre's message of strength and self-reliance resonated with a shaken public. The debate shifted. Should Canada diversify trade, invest in its own military, and forge new global partnerships? The shock accelerated efforts to build resilience at home and abroad. Canada began to see itself not as a junior partner, but as a sovereign middle power. The pain of the crisis marked a turning point, ending an era of comfortable assumptions. In the end, it wasn't just about tariffs, but about sovereignty, identity, and survival in a world where old certainties had vanished.